Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint a watermelon still life. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll show you step by step how to do it from start to finish tonight. I've got my husband, Mark, with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's been in chat during our live show, so if you've got questions while I'm painting, you can ask those and I'll try to answer. Let's get started. All right, so I am using a 9 by 12 inch canvas. This is the Fredrix Mixed Media Canvas board. I have painted it with carbon black, so really any black or dark color will do because we're going to be painting over this mostly. You just want the dark color to start with, make it a little bit easier to do some of the effects that we're going to be working on tonight. We're going to be doing a lot of dry brushing, some glazing, and some stippling and things like that. Some different effects, I think, might be interesting.
Right.
If you're, been like, what is glazing? Well, I'll be answering that tonight. So
Ooh, like donuts, like that.
You're going to want some sort of a stiff bristled or fuzzy kind of brush, textured brush. So a fan brush or a blender. Here, these are the 3/8 inch, 1/4 inch. Both of those are 3 inch. Get a 1/4 inch one, too. Oops, 1/4 inch blenders, and then the Deerfoot Stippler or something like that. You could also do the background with a sponge if you've got like a sea sponge. I'm probably not going to use this because I've gone ahead and drawn out my design, but if you wanted to, you could use the sponge for your background. It would go pretty fast, but I think I decided not to do that because I've already, like I said, kind of tried to save myself some time by drawing in my design first. Since it's a Tuesday night here, we'll try to kind of go as fast as we can. I've got a couple of angle brushes as well. These are the Princeton VelvetTouch brushes. And then I got a variety of my Princeton Aspen brushes because they're kind of stiffer bristled as well. So mostly Filberts in different sizes. And then I've got a couple of flats and a round. So I'll mention the brushes as I go over them or as I use them. Let's go over the colors. Carbon black, that's our background color. Burnt umber, burnt sienna. Yellow oxide, this is transparent yellow oxide, but you could use regular. Cadmium yellow light. Phthalo green yellow shade. Phthalo turquoise, you could use phthalo blue instead if you don't have that one. Quinacridone Magenta, Cadmium Red Light, Unbleached Titanium, Titanium White, and I've got some Zinc White since we'll be doing some lighting effects with it, but if you don't have it, just use the Titanium White, that's fine. And then I've got glazing liquid. All right, let's get going here. So I'll have the drawing for you if you're wanting to draw it yourself. I will have the traceable available on Patreon after the show. I haven't made it yet, but I just drew this on really quick to save me some time. But basically, you're talking about a circle-ish, a little bit of a dip at the top and bottom, and then split almost in half, and then kind of take a chunk out of it. And then whatever this distance is here, just make sure it matches up to your wedge here. And these are about halfway down. I've made a line about the third on my canvas, third way this way, just below the third. And then the fruit are sitting kind of right about the halfway mark, and then our picture is sitting above. If you want to make sure that it's symmetrical, you can draw a line straight down the middle to start with, and then do some lines across, and that'll help you make sure that you're getting your lines in the right place, your curves and things in the right place. You can do lines all the way through and, measure them, make sure that there's the same distance from your center. And then that way, you're getting your lines just so, or you can use the traceable. So either or works fine. No judgment. Whatever gets you to painting faster.
Oh, I so want to flirt with you right now.
All right, so I'm grabbing my, I'm not sure what I said, but I'm just going to move on.
The curve's in the right place.
Oh, okay. Yes, check. All right, so since I've got this black back here, if I try to put my turquoise on it, it's not going to show up. So what I'm going to have to do is add a little bit of white. I'm going to add the Zinc White this time because Zinc White will tint it just a little bit, but it won't make it super opaque. And if it's not opaque enough, you can use a little bit of titanium white, but I think that that's going to be perfect. See how you can just see that like a little blush of color there? That's what we want. And so I'm going to use this kind of watered down paint. I'm going to kind of wipe my brush off a little bit, and I'm going to just kind of dry brush. And I've got the largest Filbert. This is the 10 flat. And there's some of this turquoise color coming down from the top. If you don't have a large Filbert or you want to use a different brush, you could also do this with like a Deerfoot Stippler. Just keep it dry, and you could kind of tap that on. Or again, we could use the sponge, just whatever you've got that will make just a little bit of a texture here. And now I'm noticing up in the top there, I do want a little bit more of an opaque section. So I'm going to go ahead and get the white, see how much that really like covers. So I'm going to take the Deerfoot Stippler and just brush that out. And I had wet paint underneath, and that wet paint will help that the lighter color not be so obvious. If I didn't have the wet paint underneath, it would really stick to the canvas a little bit more, and I wouldn't be able to push it around as much. So in that case, I probably would have wanted to water down my paint or wipe it off a little bit. So I'm going to wipe off most of that white color, white-ish color, as I use it around the vase here, which I'm going to erase with my color. Just noticing I did all that drawing and I'm erasing it. It's all right. Okay, so there we go. And then I'm going to kind of use the Deerfoot Stippler, but you can see how much more that stuck than it did over here. So probably going to grab that first color that we were using and put that on over the edges of that, and that will just kind of soften up everything. Now, right here, that paint was starting to dry a little bit, and so when I went over it with that wet paint, it lifted off. So I just know that I have to kind of stay away from that area, or I can kind of just barely tap in that, like with some thicker paint, and it'll stick. But if I try to go over it or scrub on it, it will come off. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of mix the two and go a little bit darker as I'm coming up here. I'm going to have to redraw that face. I'm just disappearing it completely. I use chalk and it's just going away. That's all right. So I just need a dark shadow or a light color behind here, because our vase on this side is going to be dark, and the only thing that's really defining it at all is the light color of the background behind it. So, but it's still pretty dark. The whole thing is actually pretty dark. So don't go too crazy with this and go super bright on this. You want it to be very subtle. It's kind of moody and dark and very interesting. I like this. I like these kind of still lives. I think that they're really approachable when you start with these really dark backgrounds. And it's a good opportunity to try out some different effects that, because you really can't mess this up technically, too much. And you can put on as many layers as you need to. So if you get this layer done and like up here is not bright enough, so I can just grab a little bit more of my white, and now I don't want to add a lot of water to this brush. I'm going to get it just a little bit so I'm adding it to my paint more than my water. And you want to have a brown in here with this turquoise, because otherwise it would be super bright. This kind of neutralizes it, makes it more of a natural earthy teal color. I'm going to wipe that mostly off. And then this is dry enough that I can paint over it now. And I'm going to go just a little bit lighter. So that's pretty close to what I had before. Again, kind of tapping off some of the extra. There we go. And just kind of going in circles here. I think this brush is probably a little bit easier to control than the Filbert. So probably just use this one or another kind of stiff bristled brush. The blenders would work too. Okay, so that'll be good. We've got that kind of light coming down here. We've got a little bit of a highlight around the sides of the vase. I'm gonna put a little bit more color right here now that that's dry. So I think this is dry enough. I'm going to go ahead and put tape down. I've already done my line with my ruler, so I know it's straight. And I'm just going to tape just above my line because I don't want to have to erase it later. If I do it just above it, then I'll know I'll just cover up the line completely when I paint over it, and I don't have to mess with erasing that line or having a gap there. Okay, so press down really well along that edge. Do not wrap it around the edges because I did that last week and I tore the back off my paper. Note to self, don't do that. It doesn't like it. Okay. So I think I'm going to go ahead with the Filbert, and I'm going to grab the short Filbert, and I'm going to kind of paint around my edges a little bit, but I think I'm going to go ahead and I'll just do it, and we'll hope for the best. I'm probably going to have to draw back in my design, so I'm glad I didn't draw it for you earlier, because then I would have really wasted time twice. On screen. I wasted time off screen. It's fine, but on screen, it's valuable time.
Valuable time, yes.
All right, so I'm going to use the burnt umber, a little bit of black, and some unbleached titanium. And I added just a tiny touch of the yellow oxide, but mostly it's probably maybe 50-50, these two and this, and then just a tiny touch of that yellow. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of use the tip and the edge of the brush here, and I'm going to draw my wood grain, and I'm going to do it side to side and leave just a little bit of that dark showing through. I also have some shadows here, so I'm going to try to kind of just leave those. But this area is pretty bright. And then I'm going to get some of maybe a little bit of white with this black. So I have like a gray kind of. I'm going to use the light gray to highlight that area. Okay. Shadow right here. So I'm gonna do a bright area there, and then I'm going to come right here, right up against the bottom of that watermelon slice. Okay, and then I'm just going to, and see, this is a textured brush, so I'm able to get these dry brushes because I don't have a ton of paint on my brush. Catching the texture of the canvas, and it's going to give me all these nice little broken areas. That's what you want with wood grain. It makes it look like wood, having that broken paint line. And this is a fairly smooth canvas, but if you're using a canvas that has more grit to it, it can even be more obvious when we do this. And I'm going to lift off my brush as I come to these dark areas here, so that I'm not actually going to paint in the whole canvas with this. I'm just going to add a little bit of streaks. Right, so then right here under my vase, there's another little area of bright, leaving just a little bit of this dark for the shadow of the watermelon slice. And get a little bit of that more gray. A little bit more black and white. So once you do your first layer with kind of the light brown, then you're going to want to go back in with this gray to do like a second layer over the top, and that'll really kind of bring out the highlights in some of this wood grain. Okay, make sure you go really bright right up next to your slices of fruit because they're really going to cut that light. It's going to have a really sharp edge right here. So I'm going over the edge of my fruit just a little bit so that when I go in and cut in my line there, I'm going to have a really sharp edge against the shadow, or the highlighted wood, I should say. All right, so then there's another area right back here that's highlighted, and this fades off pretty quickly into the dark. So I'm not bringing that all the way to the dark edge. I can get a little bit of the brown, burnt umber, and kind of do it right in that area. I'm going over the top of this shadow just a little bit here. That's all right, because I'll be putting that back in. Okay, so getting the black, a little bit of burnt umber. I'm just going to come back this direction with that and push back that color. And you can see how going over that light color there. This is essentially glazing. We're not actually thinning out the paint, but we're sort of glazing with dry brushing almost. You know, it's not. Glazing is putting a thinned amount of paint over the top of another layer so that you can see through it. So by doing our dry brushing this way, we're kind of dry brush glazing, if that makes sense. I don't know. I've got a new term. I'm just making it up. Anyhow, we're just kind of scrubbing off some of that color. That's all we're doing. So going back in with my dark now in a thin layer so that it's sort of transparent, and still had some of that light color on my brush. So it's kind of affecting it as well. Okay, see how nice that looks? Okay, so let's do over here. Again, this is not as dark right up at the top here, or not as bright, I should say.
You talking about me? I wasn't paying attention there. I heard
Mark's area. You heard not as bright.
not as bright. I was like, oh, she's talking about me again.
I don't talk about you like that in front of you. I would never talk about you like that in front of you.
Coffee/movie night where there's no coffee and nobody watches a movie with your friends.
What?
You have coffee night with your friends, but you don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
And then you've also done movie nights where you guys don't actually watch a movie. You guys
Right.
just sit around and talk. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens too.
So hi,
And
everybody.
book club. Well, book club.
Oh,
is,
that's
is
right. That's right.
Not movie nights. Book club.
Book club.
Where we don't actually read the book. Nobody reads the book or talks about it. It was just an excuse to get together.
So hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good tonight.
Yeah.
Welcome to our craziness.
Welcome to it. Nice comments only. I heard YouTubers saying, well, let me know if you don't like it too. And I'm like, I don't care if you don't like it. I'm sorry. It's a terrible attitude. Just like, I'd rather not know, honestly. Just find somebody else that does this that you do like. I don't have to know you really don't like what I did and give me the whole list of all the reasons. It doesn't really help motivate me.
It's good therapy for them, I guess. Get off their chest.
Maybe. I don't know.
Changing the world.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Okay, there we go. I think that's good. And we got all this nice light coming off there and nice straight line now for our background area. And I think I'm going to have to paint that in because I must have scrubbed that paint off somewhere along the line. Let me see. It's chalk. Now I'll just paint it. All right. And here's this really is glazed because I just wet down my brush. So I'm just gonna kind of go over the edge just like I did on that side, but this time I've got watered down paint. It's gonna give me a nice glaze. Okay, there we go. So, let's go ahead and start on paint on our base. I think we got it close enough. If we need to, we can go back in and carefully paint around some of these, but I think we did a decent enough job. We'll see. We'll find out pretty quick when we start painting in this face.
We as in you.
And me, yeah, when I.
Because I did a great job. I know my part is.
All right, so I'm going to make more of that teal with the burnt sienna and turquoise. And if you don't have the turquoise, just use phthalo blue and phthalo turquoise or phthalo green to make turquoise. That's all it is. Phthalo blue and phthalo green. I don't know. I keep wanting to say turquoise. Turquoise.
Go out, come back in.
Yeah, my brain can't stop saying it. Okay, perfect. So, I don't know if you saw what I did there. Added some magenta to this color over here to make it's actually kind of a blue that it's almost purple, but not quite. So, and then adding the unbleached titanium to it. I'm going to get this kind of smoky gray, greenish. I might even add a little bit of yellow. We'll see. But I think this is pretty close to what I want. All right, so I'm going to use the same brush, and I'm just going to scrub along this edge. I want to paint in this edge, but I want to leave a little bit of that undercolor showing here and there. Not along the very edge, but just along this part where I'm like scrubbing it in. That'll make it easier for me to blend it out later when I'm adding other colors on top. So I'm going to bring it out just a little bit more. And then bring it in here. This part down here is going to get covered by our slice of watermelon. And it goes dark green pretty quickly. So I'm going to get some of that darker green now. And while this is wet, I'm just going to go over and blend out over the top. And this can take some time to kind of get it right. But the main thing is I don't have a ton of, well, I have a decent amount of paint on here, but not on the tip. The bottom area is loaded up pretty thick with paint, but up in here, I can still see the individual bristles. It's not like clumped up with paint. And that allows me to kind of just scrub it on strategically in certain areas and not overwhelm the whole thing with too much paint too quickly. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. This side needs to be really dark. So I'm going to get the black, and I'm going to do this side with the black. And hopefully if we did this background light enough, this will show. If it doesn't, then we may have to go back over that with more black, with more of that color. We'll see. And I lost my drawing, so I'm kind of guessing here where it's supposed to go. But almost halfway in our vase is where this kind of switches over to this dark color. So this light color is all the way up in here and across. And this whole area back here is dark. And where it's set on the table. Let me clean my brush out because I've got that lighter color in here. It's affecting it. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Turning it upside down can help too, because you can see sometimes you get kind of one lopsided, one to one side. I don't really know why, but just kind of a natural tendency, you know, to favor one side over another. And so by flipping it, you can kind of, sometimes some people look in a mirror. I can kind of use that and see. I think I've got fairly close there. And we can see that just fine against that background. So I think we're good to go. Okay, I'm going to get some of the phthalo green. And I've still got this black in my brush. Let me go ahead and spray everything really good with water. So I'm going to use this brighter green here. And I definitely need a little bit of white added, so I'm going to go ahead and get that zinc white. Again, the zinc white is a softer mix, so it won't change, it won't dull your colors quite as quickly as just plain white would. Okay, so there we go. Just a tiny touch of the white in here. And then using this color on the back side of my vase to darken it up. And this is too dark in this area, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of the color with a little bit of yellow and yellow oxide and magenta. Maybe a little bit of burnt sienna too. And it still had that black in it, so and the green that I just mixed. So the green against that magenta is going to dull it, make it kind of a muddier color. This whole vase is kind of this muddy browns, earth tones. There we go. Okay. So just now adding the second kind of layer over here, and again just kind of scrubbing, not really pushing too hard, just letting whatever comes off my brush catch the texture of the canvas and pull off there. And I definitely think I need it brighter, because looking at my reference photo, you can see how much brighter this side is. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of continue up here with this first layer, and then we'll put on a darker or a brighter layer, and some shadows probably too, some darkers as well. So just a little bit of both. Highlights and shadows, back and forth.
Silver and gold.
Exactly. Okay, getting some of that green that I just mixed up for down here. I'm going to use it up here. Right at the neck of this bottle, there's an area that's kind of highlighted, so just going just above that area with some darker colors. And just pressing down and letting kind of whatever's on my brush at this point come off. Getting a little bit more of that yellow, yellow oxide right here on that area that just did. And part of the problem is that you're looking at it at an angle, so it's looking a little slanted just because of the angle of the camera. If it was straight up and down, it would not look as angled, but then my hand would be in the way, so you wouldn't be able to see what I'm painting. So it's kind of a catch-22. We kind of try to do our best to keep it in. I am going to add a little bit of this turquoise to the background back here, because I feel like it's a little too dark right up against that edge, just right here in that nook. I didn't get that light color. Whopping most of this out. I'm just going to come right up against that. There we go, right in that corner. Scrub it in so I've got a nice like little bright area right there for it to play against. And I can do down here if I need to. I have a little bit of it right here that I missed as well. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and do over the top of that handle. Totally. How's it going?
Everything is good over here.
Good.
How's it going over there?
Good. I'm painting. It's always good.
I'm just glad I'm not on camera. People see what I'm doing over here.
What?
At least I'm glad I'm not on camera. People see what I'm doing over here.
What are you doing?
Well, nothing really. I mean, it'd be a pretty boring show.
Oh. Okay. Got it. Check. Okay, so I'm going brighter here than I want it, but I just want to define it so I can kind of know where to put my colors, and then I'll be adjusting it. All right, let's get that dark green, a little bit of black, and I'm going to use it on this half of the vase right here. And push that color in and do a really dark shadow right up underneath the lip. Get that lighter color and push it back up. Just blend it out. I brought that dark down a little bit too much, but we'll just put a little bit more color over it here in a minute. It to be fine. Okay, then I'm gonna darken up this half of the top. There we go. Getting a little bit of the brightest color. And I just want to kind of dry brush it right here. Catch the light right in the top of the middle of that picture. And I'm deliberately kind of fuzzing out the edge there too, going over the top of the edge just to make it a little bit messy. Let's put a little bit of this color over here. Not as bright, but close. And I'm going to get some of that darker pink color that has the magenta in it and just work out the edges. Okay, there we go. So there's some really cool colors in here that we're going to add later. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of the teal and some of the zinc white and maybe just a tiny touch of the magenta, and that'll make the teal more blue. Just want it to be a little bit more of like almost like an ultramarine blue or something. Got a little bit of a purple leaning. I'm going to add it in a few places here. See how that's pretty. Love it. Let's add a little bit of green too. Get a little bit of my green. Add some of that in here. And this is kind of dry brushing, glazing again, like I did before. It's not really technically glazing, but I'm kind of going over this with a little bit of color to add, getting the yellow oxide with the green now. I'm going to add that. I'm just kind of tinting our vase so it's got all these kind of really interesting colors in it. If you can't see it, you can add just a tiny bit of one of the whites. Either one's fine, depending on how obvious you want the color to be. The white, titanium white, will make it much more opaque and more obvious. The zinc white will be a little bit more subtle. All right, then I'm going to get a little bit more of the pink and magenta and the unbleached titanium, and I'm going to mix it with this green yellow that I was just using. And maybe get a little bit of white. So I want to do this brighter section along here, and I want most of this color out, so I don't want a ton of color on here. I'm just going to kind of scrub it on right along that edge. And I want to scrub it where I want the brightest color first. So start in your brightest areas. And in fact, I think I'm going to switch to my 1/4 inch blender here and get a little bit of water. And just use the water on this side of it and push that back. Wipe it off. You got to do this while it's wet though. If you do it after it's dry, it's not going to do anything. But when you first put that color down, it's still a little bit wet. You can kind of smush it around and push it around. Just make sure your background's completely dry before you try to do this though. Otherwise you'll just lift off your background and that will not be good. You would not be happy. Nobody would be happy. Okay, so my paint's almost dry on my brush here, which is really gonna help control it. It's when your paint's almost dry like this, it makes it so much easier to dry brush because you can really almost just scrub like hard. And if you are not having to kind of put some pressure on it, you probably have too much paint on your brush. So press down, scrub out if, you know, and especially if you're doing this and a ton of paint comes off and it's really opaque and it covers everything up, then you've got too much paint on your brush. So, and it's okay, you can get it off, you know, use your wet brush and just, you know, before it dries, just kind of scrub it off and push it around where you want it to be. So if you do get it too harsh, you know, it's not the end of the world. You can fix it. You can always put darker color over the top of it too. Sometimes your mistakes are kind of make it more interesting. Mistakes, quote unquote, you know, make it more interesting. So the more layers with acrylics, you just kind of have to be patient. It takes a lot of layers to get it just right. All right, and then there's some areas of like chipped paint. Like there's like a couple of areas right here where it looks like the finish is chipped away. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to use this brush now to kind of push that around. I'm going to get a little bit of burnt sienna, burnt sienna, and just kind of mark out the borders of that, just to darken it up a little bit.
I wonder.
Oops, I used the wrong brush there. What?
What is that sound?
This sounds like a garbage truck.
I'm going to dull down your mic a little bit till that goes away.
Okay.
I was just wondering how he had to explain the chips in the vase. Kind of like me in the cilantro.
Yeah, I know. I thought Mark had thrown out my cilantro. He was about to get a tongue lashing, but not the good kind.
So on that note, I need to turn your mic down even further. So somebody has asked, would it be a good idea to use your less pristine brush for the jug?
Yeah, definitely. Just a brush that's got a little bit more character to it, a little bit stiffer bristles, and that you don't mind kind of pushing around and getting in there.
And then there's another question real quick. Mm-hmm. Somebody would like to know, do you use the golden retarder?
I don't, but you can, yeah. I mean, the glazing medium here, I can grab it a little bit. It gives you a little bit extra dry time, so it's got, and I do use that, so, but I don't use the retarder. I don't like retarders because they make your paint a little slick. And you have to be careful how much you use. So you have to be really aware of how much you've used, because you're supposed to only use them in certain certain quantities with your paint. So you like ratios, and you have to pay attention to the ratios. And you know that I'm not good with math, so everybody knows that ain't happening.
So how many hand widths is that?
All right, just getting some of the turquoise and some burnt sienna here, and just kind of working my dark area here and pushing that back in, and I'm about done with the vase there. I need to do my handle, which I'm going to do in black. So I'm going to start out over here, and I'm going to make a harder line right there for that corner of the vase. I feel like that's high. It probably is a little bit. Bring it down a little bit. And then the vase is coming off kind of the bottom of it right here. Coming out a little bit, not too far. And in fact, it's probably in line with this. So once you get to the edge there, you just kind of turn it and come down. And meet it up with the side of that vase. I'm just using the edge of my brush to do it. Okay, then I want to get a little bit of, I'm just going to get a little bit of the unbleached titanium with this black, and a little bit too much. Wipe that off a little bit. Wipe it off my brush a little bit more. There we go. And tap over that. And it looks like it's kind of on the inside, so kind of is on the top there, and then turn it just before you go to the edge, and go kind of down the middle a little ways, and then to the inside of the handle. Right there. And stop it before you get to that body, because you're not going to be able to see it's a little bit different shaped than our picture, but that's all right. It's close. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to put in a little bit of yellow oxide in my unbleached titanium and just do my patch again a little bit. A little spot. Whoop. This brush is too big. Okay, and then right here, I'm going to use my scrubber. Just a stiff bristle brush, could be any of the ones that we've been using. I'm going to use my Zinc White. Make sure this is dry. And on the part that is just as it's coming over, so not quite the fattest part down here, but not quite as high as I have it right here, just pretty much just like right below that mark that I have there. I'm going to start my Zinc White. And okay, so put a little bit down, wipe your brush off really well. While that's still wet, just work the outside edges. Don't go back in the middle. Leave it bright right there. And this brush has a little bit of wet, so I can get this one wet. I can't get my Deerfoot Stippler wet. The Deerfoot Stippler won't, it gets soggy, but this one won't. This one's got a synthetic, is a kind of a synthetic hog bristle. That's why I really like it for this kind of thing, the blenders. But it can be tricky to get it just so, because it's kind of fuzzy, you know, you can't be too precise with it. So I'm going to get my white, titanium white, and kind of press it flat, and I'm just going to kind of dab and stipple a little bit of a highlight. And it should be off center, so this way towards center. And then I'm going to stipple up here too, and hope that I can get it. Oh no, I can't. I'm going to have to go back to this brush. Just not quite, just too, little too much. But this one has some texture too, so I can just stipple with it this way, right along that edge. You could use a fan brush too if you wanted to. Okay, and I'm going to go back with this, just with the very tip of the brush, and do just a little bright one right there, and stop. I probably still don't have it bright enough along this edge. But I'm going to let this dry really completely, do my watermelon, and then we'll come back to it. And if I still need some, I can do it then. Oh, okay, that lifted off. I had some white there, but I didn't. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our watermelon. We're making decent time.
So, how many watermelons do you think this person cut before they got
Got it just right.
just right?
I don't know, but this is a pretty photogenic watermelon. It's got some pretty lines in it.
I bet she gets a lot of work. Part of the fruit union.
Right. Okay, so just doing the dark green to start with, just to reestablish my shape here, or I should say form. We talked about that this week. Well, really the shape though, the outline of it would start. I feel like I need to come in a little bit right there, so I'm gonna wipe that off and come in just a little bit more quickly right there. Okay. Looks good. And then there is a little bit of it kind of showing along this edge here. That will help define that edge. Somewhere in there. All right, I'm going to get a little bit of the yellow oxide, and I used a little bit of burnt umber, I think, with that. Or no, I had black on my brush, so but I'm going to get a little bit of burnt umber and a little bit of unbleached titanium. Let's get that. Just stick my finger in the white.
Now, is that a secret painting tip?
Do that for luck.
Ah.
I meant to do that. Okay, so just very lightly coming down with the light color from the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this color as my base for my flesh of the watermelon. And it's a light green, almost white, but not quite. This is going to have that neutral green in it. So it's going to be a really pretty color. Yeah, I think that'll be good. Wipe that off. And I'm going to use this brush, but I might have to switch. It might be too fuzzy, but it's doing okay. So I came down a little bit too much with that, but I'm just going to kind of pull down and fuzz out the inside part right here. And what that'll do is make it easier for me when I do my red to blend back up into that color. So I don't have like a straight line right there to have to deal with. So just kind of fuzzing out that edge. Sharp line along the outside, but soft in the towards the middle.
So is fuzzing out a intermediate technique?
I don't know. I was pretty fuzzed out the other day after my surgery. Those meds they gave me. I can relate. And the funny thing is, I didn't feel it was like, these don't really affect me that much. And I'm like getting the dates wrongs on things and doing things that or not doing things that I thought I'd done, you know. Like, no, I was, yeah, no, we definitely don't want to be on those. Definitely.
What year is it?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, I had this down. I don't know what that was right there. Was that supposed to be the edge of my watermelon? Maybe I'm supposed to bring it out a little bit more. Let's see. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. No, I think it's all right. All right, I'm just gonna leave it. All right, I am gonna get a little bit of my unbleached titanium and my cadmium yellow light, or cadmium red light. I'm sorry. Do that right along that edge too. So there's like this really soft, fleshy bit right there. I'm just trying to kind of blend it while it's still wet. I'm not doing a very good job. It's not blending very well, but that's okay. Okay. And then let's go ahead and just kind of streak through. Having this lighter color underneath my darker reds will kind of help give me a head start over that dark areas. The red's not going to cover that dark area, so I'd have to add some white to it anyways. Might as well just fill this area in, give us a lighter area to play with. And kind of going along with the flesh of the fruits like that I'm seeing, so it kind of does this like almost spoke. And there is a dark area right here, so I'm not going to go all the way to the center. Okay, so that's good enough. It doesn't look great right now, but that's okay. It's going to take a couple layers to go over the top of this black, so this is just our first attempt at covering it. And let's go ahead and do our fruit here. So the top of it, did I do it right there? I think that was supposed to be it, but it doesn't come up high enough. So I'm going to go a little bit higher. It goes right here, like that. Just make sure that this isn't too big for our watermelon over here. I just don't want my slice to be bigger this way than my, so there to there. Okay, it's close. I think it's all right. Oh, I think that was the bottom of the vase that I was seeing. The line for the bottom of the vase. Not my watermelon. Maybe. I don't know. I lost my drawing completely when I painted.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and watch the replay.
Yeah. Well, I literally did the drawing in like 5 minutes, so it probably wasn't exactly correct anyways. All right, that looks pretty close. Let's get the green. Do the green on the outside here. It's probably a little bit more yellow than I have it here, so I might go over the top of this green with a little bit of yellow because I think this might be a little minty, but I'm gonna start somewhere. We'll just start with this. I can always edit it later. And just gonna scrub over the top and sort of mesh those two. There's really no like hard line where these two meet. So let's go ahead and switch to a smaller brush. I think I'm going to go ahead and use the Filbert that's a little bit smaller. So this is a 2 Filbert. But I'm liking the texture of this brush. And so I'm going to stick with it. Really don't have much more to do. This rind is going to go along really quickly. So here's my yellow with my green, and then I'm going to add just a touch of the burnt sienna, just to tone it down just slightly. So I don't want it as bright as it is right now, but I still want it fairly bright. So, and we'll see, that looks pretty good. So wipe most of that out. So I'm going to start at the top here and just kind of scrub along the edge, a cut edge. Yep, somewhere in here. I have too much water, but it's all right. Let's go ahead and kind of do some lines. So we're going to do these curved lines that are going to follow the shape of the watermelon. So there, and another line here. These two are close together, tucking in underneath. Just like think of the center top being the pole axis or the middle of the spokes or whatever, and so each one of these is coming down and meeting up with the center there. Okay, and then there's another one right here. This actually comes up like that, and then our center has got a little stem coming out like that. All right, so let's go ahead and get a little bit of white here. Do my stem. That'll help give me something to aim for. I'm gonna get a little bit of brown. Kind of put some brown where it attaches and tap it back over that so it's not quite as pretty. There we go. We're trying to grow pumpkins right now, or pumpkins and watermelons in our garden. Our watermelon are like a yellow one, so hopefully they'll be good. I don't know, we'll see. I haven't started really doing much of anything yet. I've been posting a bunch of pictures on my Facebook of our garden. Got some really good pictures of some farmers out there, including Mark and
including Mark.
right, and the butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
Mark was out farming with the butterflies the other day. Getting some of the green here. Gonna do another layer of that darker green on the outside there, kind of define that a little bit better. That shape. And there's a little bit of the dark along this side right here. Coming down just the slightest little bit on that side too. Just a little bit. Just kind of all the way around. Okay. Let's keep on going. I didn't mix enough of this color, so I'm going to have to get a little bit more of it over here. Phthalo green. This green is so sticky. And burnt sienna. Okay.
Somebody said that when they first saw the pictures, they thought I was a little old lady in my sun hat.
That's awesome.
Is that because I hadn't shaved?
Sure. Great. I saw one of our friends, the Joneses, Debbie posted a picture of her husband in a very similar getup with the hat and everything. It was like just Mark and him have been color coordinating coordinating outfits. He had a hat just like yours.
I have
It's the Arkansas farmer. I didn't know that there was a.
I have a solid hat, like the brimmed hat like that, but my head gets very hot in the summertime. So to keep my ears from getting burned, I wear that one. Kind of lets the air through, but helps protect my gentle ears.
Right. It's cute. Okay. So put your colors on slowly because you don't need a lot of color here. It's going to really show up against this dark. I'm going to get a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of the unbleached titanium. I'm going to go back over. I want to wait for that to dry. And I'm going to dry brush some of this over it now. So just like inside of that light green area that I just did. And I'm going to keep it mostly on this edge. And I'm going to define this side of the watermelon here. Where it comes down. And then put a little bit more of this up here at the top where the light's catching it. If you get too much, you can use your finger to rub it out or use another brush, whatever. See how just kind of doing this like textured gives it more realistic look. I need to do the red inside so that I can kind of define this edge because I'm kind of not exactly sure where it's at right now. So let's go ahead and make up our red, and you could use any red really. Watermelon is pretty much just red and white. It makes that like as long as you've got kind of like a good cherry red, like a good medium red, like a naphtha red or a cadmium red medium. But I'm just mixing the Quinacridone Magenta and the Cadmium Red Light to make my red. It's pretty much 50-50, and then I'm just going to add white to it. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and add the Zinc White. See. It's gonna give me a really nice pink. Look how pretty that is. And the nice thing about this pink is it's gonna be a little bit transparent because I'm using the Zinc White. So, which I might want. I might want the titanium white, we'll see. I'm probably gonna have to go back over with some titanium white. But look how pretty that is. I love this color.
So you've really only painted still lifes from photographs. Mm-hmm. You haven't set up your own and done that?
Not really.
So you don't know the advantages of doing one versus the other, one way or the other?
Well, I mean, the colors are obviously going to be better in real life than on photograph. But your light's not going to shift as much unless you're using artificial light, and then maybe you wouldn't have any issues. But I'm going to get a little bit of white regular white and get a little bit of my red here because I need to cover this part up. It's showing through my vase.
And as we've said before, you don't want your subject to be donuts.
Right, because they'll be gone. Get a paint fruit or something like that that will stay around for a while.
Right, that nobody will come and eat on you.
Right. Okay. And I went a little bit far down with my color there, I'm noticing, but that's all right. I'll fix it. All right, so I'm going to get my red, more red. Go to the middle, but you can see how transparent that red is, so I need to add just a little bit of white, and the white will just help it be more opaque, and I'm going to use a little bit of black too. Black is just to shadow it. Okay, there we go. And then let's do this whole section with this dark red. And where they meet in the middle is pretty much black. So I'm just going to get some black here. And just do the line down the middle. Get my black. It's a little bit curved where it comes down right there, but something like that. So the light's not getting in there. That's why it's so dark. The light's hitting right here and it's bypassing, so we're not getting any light on this center part. And because there's no light in the room anywhere else bouncing off anything, it's just black. It's like as if the lights are off in that area. So if we had more light in the room, then our wall would probably be lit up and our table would be more lit up, but this is a very like focused light setting, only one direction. So that's why you get this really dramatic effect. I'm gonna get more of the medium red here. And there. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Let me get some more of that brighter red, and I'm just going to kind of dab it on in different places in my watermelon. Let's go ahead and use it here too and do the same things, just dabbing it with the edge of my brush in the direction that I'm seeing that growth pattern. So I'm getting a good like darker and lighter areas, and then let's go ahead and mix up some more of this with the Cadmium Red Light. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow oxide to it too. Come on. There we go. I'm going to add a lot of yellow oxide to it. It's not tinting it very strongly. A little bit more yellow. Okay. I'm just going to kind of wiggle it along that edge and try to kind of blend it with the red and the green a little bit. I'm going to put more green in there too. Put more white along that edge, I mean. Okay, Let's do the same thing we did with the red with this color. And just go through here and kind of do our little veins and things that we're seeing in our watermelon. Kind of try to go around my dark red areas a little bit. So I'm not covering everything up that we just did.
Somebody's got a question.
Okay.
They said that they've been having a problem lately with the paint adhering to the canvas.
Okay.
So what would be causing that, maybe?
What kind of canvas are you using to start with?
Good question. I'm going to say
First question.
a whitish canvas.
If it's a super like cheap brand, then it could be the gesso that the canvas is painted with is not great. If it's a good quality canvas and the gesso seems fine, it could be that your paint is too thinned out. If you add too much water to acrylics, they can have problems binding to the surface, so that could be the problem. Some cheaper quality paints just aren't as good just in general, so you might try adding getting a better quality paint potentially, but not knowing, it's kind of hard to know exactly what her situation is or their situation. Okay, I'm gonna use the pink down here with some white, and so going a little bit lighter than what I have right now. Wipe most of it off, just a little bit on the very tip of the brush. I'm gonna do some little wiggle a little bit of veins and things again in the direction of the growth that I'm seeing, and then I'm gonna use the glaze to kind of smush out the edges there a little bit. Going in the wet glaze, kind of tapping over it. Glaze just kind of make it a little bit more transparent, a little bit less obvious. And do this lighter color at the top where the light's hitting it. It's getting a little bit brighter. But I want to blend that out, so if you've got a hard line there or anything, you can just use this brush to kind of blend it out, or you can use your finger. Okay, let's do some more over here. This again, it's got some light color in here, and I'm going to use that with a little bit of glaze, so I'm putting on some transparent color. And then just kind of drawing with the edge of the brush, just some little veins here and there. And always kind of going towards the center a little bit. Center in the top. Okay. Good, let's go ahead and do I'm going to wipe off my chalk lines now that this is dry. Make sure I get all my chalk lines off. There we go. I've got paint on me somewhere. Don't know where it came from. I'm going to wipe my hands off real quick.
So while you're doing that, I'll show the Sunday bonus painting that I did.
You didn't.
I did this all by myself. Don't let Angela tell you that it was her.
Find it right there.
Well, okay.
All right, I'm going to spray this down. But yes, the Patreon bonus video we do once a month for our $5 patrons. We pick an image that's kind of a little bit more complicated and takes a little bit more time than what we do on YouTube. And so we do those for our patrons as a thank you for supporting our channel. And that one took us about, what, 4 hours?
4 hours, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
Took me 4 hours.
Huh?
What?
What'd you say?
I said it took me 4 hours. Kind of reverse big eyes, I tell everybody.
Okay. Very pretty hands. I like your pink fingernail polish color.
I know, I did it. Had to remove it. All right.
Okay, so almost done here. Just very small touches now to finish it off. I'm going to mix up some more of my brighter red with the magenta and cadmium red light. Or, yeah, cadmium red light. That's how pretty that is. Really pretty. I might add just a slight touch of yellow. Okay, and then I'm going to use this with my glaze. It's fairly transparent. The cadmiums are more opaque, so, but the Quinacridone Magenta is super transparent, so it kind of counteracts it. So this is kind of a translucent color, I would say. Not totally transparent, but close. So I'm going to go from the center out and just brighten up my reds. And just in a few places, just this area over here is more red. So I've got these colors underneath, and by putting on this transparent color, we should be able to see underneath through. So if you can't see your color underneath, then you just need to add more glaze. Did you find out her canvas color?
No.
Okay.
Did not.
She never said. Maybe I answered it then.
Maybe.
We'll hope. Okay, pretty happy with that. And I'm going to get a little bit of my white and the green and yellow. And I've got this color on here, so it'll do the same thing that my burnt sienna did. It's just going to neutralize that green for me. So I'll get a more toned down green. And I'm going to use it just on the inside of this right here. Just the slightest little bit. It's fairly dark, so don't go too dark with that. Right there. Let's go ahead and use a little bit of white with this. And just highlight our stem in a couple places. Just dabbing. And then I'm going to use my glaze with this light green. You can use a little bit of zinc white if we want to. And dab it right in here. Oh, I still need to put some green in my green areas. So can't do too much right now. But I'm going to brighten up that area right there. The I want to say pumpkin, watermelon. It's a pumpkin shape kind of. Right, then let's get my green in this area. Get a little bit of the burnt umber or burnt sienna, really both. And I'm just going to use this. Brighten up that area, and it needs just a touch of white because it's not opaque. So I just need a little bit of white. Not too much because I want it to stay dark, but I can always glaze back over this. So if you do this and it's too bright, you can always glaze your dark back over in these areas and darken it back up. And again, I'm not really painting it on per se as much as like just tapping. It's a tap. That's what's giving it that texture and that feeling. And having this stiffer bristles really helps. This brush that I'm using is more stiff bristles, so it's pushing that paint around because this heavy body acrylic doesn't want to go anywhere. It just wants to stick to your brush. So you either got to thin it down a little bit or you got to have a brush that's going to push it around. Tell it what to do. So it's a bully. Slightest little sliver of green at the top here. And I'm going to get some of that lighter green here and kind of indicate a little bit of a stripy part there. It's probably a little bit too bright, so I'm just going to kind of tap back over it. But I do want a little bit more of the bright yellow in my green at the top of this. So I'm going to do one more layer of that, just a couple places up here. Really pretty.
Like the artist.
Oops. What did I get on there? Probably had something on my hands. Let me see if I can get it off by wiping it. This is why you don't want paint on your hands because it'll stick where you don't want it. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to use a little bit of this color right along the edge here to tint our rind. This is just that lime greeny color. And then wipe that out really good. Use lots of white. Just a little bit of this green. And I'm going to go ahead and use the glaze just to thin it out just a little bit. I don't want it to go on too thick right at first. I'm going to start at the edge where I want it brightest, right up against the green. I'm keeping this brush fairly thin here, kind of using the side of it and just sort of almost dry brushing on that. Okay, that's good. One more time. Just get it a little bit more bright, but I just want it to kind of fade into that red area. So if you need to, you might have to do your light red again right along that edge if you didn't do it far enough in. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and do it up here. Now this is going to be really dramatic because this is really bright on our picture. It's getting a lot of light. So I want it nice and bright right here. So I'm putting it on full strength. And then just fading it out as it goes down underneath the watermelon. And I'm just using what's left in my brush to kind of pull it towards the middle a little bit. Okay, good. Good. It's probably a little bit bright down here. So I'm going to get some of this red a little bit of my Zinc White. Again, if you don't have titanium Zinc White, just use titanium white. Just use less of it, because this titanium white's more transparent or more opaque. It's gonna cover more. It'll be much more obvious than this. So, okay, and then I'm just gonna wiggling around and doing my highlights in there. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's do our seeds. So this is where you're gonna want a smaller brush and my black. And it's just some tap it off so it kind of looks faded a little bit in these areas here. Go back in with that really dark right there, the black, if I need to define that again. Which up here it's actually not as black. So probably need to take some of that off. Okay, and then right here though, we're seeing these really obvious seeds. I'm just going to use the shape of this brush. It's a little round. This is the 22-aught round. So it's a small round. I'm just going to set my brush down with the point facing in and push it down. It's going to make that seed shape for me. Okay. Trying to move it so you can see, but I'm not sure if I'm not in the shot. Okay. Right here. Get a little bit of water so that that paint's fluid enough to come off without really having to do much, but it should still be opaque too, so it's kind of a catch-22. And I did watermelon jewelry one year. Like, I remember that. I did so many seeds like this. I could do seeds for days. They're actually really fun when you get going with it.
Button covers, right?
Button covers with watermelons, yeah. Button covers and earrings and all kinds of stuff.
Remember those?
Yeah, that was a very, very short-lived fad in the 90s. Very short-lived, like maybe 2 years. And people realized it was not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. Okay, so used that red and made a dark maroon here. I'm going to make a little bit more of my bright red because it's dried up over there. And I'm going to kind of mix a little bit of these two together. So I have kind of a nice dark shadow color because our seeds are shadowed where they're setting in our watermelons. So I've got to go around them. Be careful not to touch that wet paint. And just give them a little bit of shadow where they're living so they have a little obvious kind of shadow around them. And there's some over here that kind of look, you're not really seeing the shadows, but you know they're there. Or that you're not really seeing the seeds, but you know they're there. You could put some over there if you wanted to. It's totally up to you, but they're not in our picture. But we know they're there. Okay, like that. Isn't it fun? I love painting. It's just so cool. Sit down for a couple hours and you end up with, start with a blank canvas and end up with this. It's pretty fun. And I had a really, really neat post in my Thankful Art group this week that I'll be putting in my newsletter. So if you want to sign up for my newsletter and see it, you can go to my website, and we've got sign-ups there. Some of these are highlighted. I'm going to go ahead and kind of hit most of them up with a little bit of a highlight. And this just titanium white and unbleached, and the zinc white a little bit 50-50 kind of. There's just a little bit of highlight on them. Okay. And I want to add just a little bit more of that white veining too while I've got this smaller brush, so I can control it a little bit better. There we go. Make sure your paint's thinned out. That's one of the things that will help you get these thinner lines. Thin your paint. Okay. Now, the only thing we've got left to do is do our shadows again. We've got to put those back in. So I noticed right here that my board is not going all the way up to my watermelon there, so I'm going to have to fix that. I thought I might not have done that, but so I'm going to bring that brown up. And there is a line through these that is like a board, so I'm going to go ahead and put that, and it just happens to go right through the middle of what I just painted, so it'll be good way to kind of blend it out a little bit. Got black here, and it's thinned out a little bit with some water. There we go. So now we've got a line there, and then let's use this kind of glaze with my black, and I'm going to go underneath my watermelon with this, and where it goes over the top of my highlighted colors, or my colors, it'll kind of fade out, so just kind of pull it out and blend out that edge a little bit, and then have the dark color right up against the fruit, right up underneath it. Okay, get that color there. Go ahead and kind of round out the bottom of that vase a little bit, and then come out. It's angled just slightly back, so it's not completely straight. The angle is kind of like this. So our lighting source over here is kind of cast in these shadows at a slight angle. Actually dark around this side of it. And right in the middle there, it dips in. Back. Okay. There we go. All right, now you can use this black and go back over this if you need to shadow anything. Shadow a little bit on the arm right here and maybe where it meets up my vase. Darken up the bottom of that lip of the vase there, just underneath. It really pushes that top part forward. Okay, did I miss anything?
There's a couple of seeds on the table.
Ah, yes, thank you. Yes, okay. Yeah, they do. Let's go ahead and do 2 right here. There's 1 down here, I guess. And then get some of that highlight color, put them along the top of those. And then they cut little shadows too, so I'm gonna give them a little shadow. Just a little one. Little bit. Little bit. Okay. Did we do it? I think we did it. Let me sign it. What were you saying? Yeah, if it's... Oh, yeah, I need to put the highlight on my pumpkin, or my watermelon still. Keep saying pumpkin. I'm ready for fall. I'm ready to start painting pumpkins, apparently. Whoop, I could sign my name. I can't even sign it with the pen. I'm putting an R where my E is. Supposed to go. Super chat!
We're going to Super Chat Town. Won't you take me to Super Chat? Oh, yeah, we'll stick to art. All right, so we had a super chatter, but via PayPal this week.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you to Karen. There was no message attached to, but thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you, Karen.
And then to
That was a really cool surprise.
Yes. yes. And then we had 2 super chatters during the show tonight.
Wow.
First one was from Colleen, and she says, thanks for calming painting. Always enjoy it.
Yay.
Thank you, Colleen. And then one from Carol. No message, but there was an emoji of a little minty green fruity jumping into the arms of another orange fruity thing. So
Yay.
I think it's kind of like a love awesomeness.
Love the fruit loved.
There you go. So thank you, Carol, and thank you, Colleen, and thank you,
Awesome.
Karen.
All right, I'm going to make up some of that. I've got the red and a little bit of the burnt sienna. I'm sorry. Turquoise. I don't know why I said that. Not burnt sienna at all. Not even close.
Try it again.
Not even close. I was thinking I could have used burnt sienna. That's why I said it. You could use whatever. So making up a nice light color here. I'm going to use the glaze. And I'm going to punch up this highlight on this side of the base with the highlighted. Sound like I'm drunk. Highlighted. Ha. Getting tired. And just use my finger to kind of rub it out. Let's do a couple layers of that to pump up that highlight there. Just scrub it out. Okay, that's better. I think it probably could do even a little bit brighter. Maybe get a little bit of white with it. Just a little. So go in like one shade brighter here. Don't want to do too much too quickly. And that first layer is not quite dry yet, so I got to be real careful. Okay, that's better. That's better. We just needed a little bit brighter highlight. Now we can see that it's closer to what I'm seeing in the photograph there. All right, this was fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it with me on social media if you painted along. I'd love to see it. And we'll be back on next Tuesday. Yep. I'll be starting a new bonus video, or no, new challenge video, I should say, on Thursday for our $10 level patrons. We have a Thursday show that's just their own over on Crowdcast that I do with them every Thursday. It's a lot more low-key, a lot more kind of in-depth painting, and we take several weeks to finish it. So last month's was this beauty. Just finished it. It's actually supposed to be July's. We went 1 week into August because I had to take a week off for my mouth surgery. Missed a week. I had to play hooky. And so we're going to be starting on another still life. That's what made me think of it. We're going to do a rose and some books, and it'll be very similar to this kind of a painting, but a lot more detail. So hope if you're my $10 level, you join me for that. I'll see you on Thursday, and then for the rest of you, we'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks for watching today. Bye.